How's it going, everyone? We are headed into the holiday season where you can expect a lot of great deals, but we've also been covering the Essential Pick sale quite in depth, and we have several videos uploaded. Here is going to be a compilation of all of the videos we've uploaded covering the Essential Pick sale. We did 2 under $5 videos, 2 under 10, and then an under 20 as well. Tons of deals. Check it out all for yourself in one full video, and it's chaptered and everything like that, so you can go through all of the deals. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts down below, and enjoy the deals. How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store is currently running its gargantuan Essential Pick sale, as well as its games under $20 sale. A ton of deals, north of 1,000 deals available. Let's highlight some awesome game deals under the price of $5. Super cheap games, but still worthwhile titles to pick up. On top of that, remember that this sale is going to be running for a couple of weeks. It's actually going to be running all the way until November 18th, so a lengthier sale, I believe 3 weeks. 3 more weeks of this sale, and that'll probably bring us right into like some sort of autumn sale, Thanksgiving sale, Black Friday sale, all that good stuff will be happening then, but that's still a ways away. For now, let's look at some deals under $5. First of all, we have Campo Santo's Firewatch, 75% off for $4.99. Man, if you guys were around back in February 2016 when this game came out, I think it was February of 2016, there was a lot of dialogue debate attached to Firewatch, mainly because it was super light on the gameplay, a little bit on the shorter side. I think some people weren't crazy about the narrative. I thought the story was really strong, and I thought visually this game is just absolutely gorgeous, and even 7.5, almost 8 years later, this game from a visual standpoint holds up so well. It's just a beautiful game from that standpoint. Aesthetics are great, and I think the writing in the game is fairly decent. You know, some people were left a little bit unsatisfied with the conclusion and everything like that, but for $5, if you're into narrative-driven games, I would say definitely give Firewatch a shot. It's a game that at this point, you don't hear a lot of people talk about, but when it came out, it was like a big point of discussion, so yeah, have some fond memories of this, and I really enjoyed it, so $4.99 for that is fantastic. Next up, we have .hack GU Last Recode, 90% off for $4.99. Man, what a great deal this is, and obviously, there's a bit of nostalgia for me in play with this. .hack is a franchise that I really grew up with. Really, I was probably more as, like, growing up, as far as an IP is concerned, I was probably more into .hack as a teenager than I was into Final Fantasy. That's kind of wild to think about, but yeah, .hack was the JRPG series that really hooked me. Now, in retrospect, like, comparing this game to Final Fantasy X, 12, 7, you know, those games, now that I play them, yeah, obviously Final Fantasy I would probably say is the better franchise. I don't think that's too big of a statement there, but .hack is really enjoyable. There are some elements that didn't really click with me. The retreads of all the dungeons and everything like that isn't great, but you're getting into this game for the story, the characters, the soundtrack. Those elements are really strong, and with this Last Recode, this collection, you get 3 games that, back in the day, we got suckered into spending like $40 on each of them, when they really probably should have just been one entire collection. I don't know, like one entire game. Like Volume 1, you can complete that game very quickly, like 15 to 17 hours, so like you can complete Volume 1 very quickly, but nonetheless, for the entirety of the, you know, experience, the GU arc, it's gonna be a sizable undertaking to go through all 3 games, and for $4.99, it's a great deal if you're remotely into JRPGs. Next up, we have Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered, 90% off for $3.99. Now, I loved Need for Speed Hot Pursuit back when it released in 2010. This remastered release, I was super excited for going into the release of it. Not much of a remaster here, like you're just going into it for the Hot Pursuit experience, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the Hot Pursuit experience is effing awesome. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is an awesome arcade racer, some great chases, some wild moments. Obviously, you know, anybody getting into Need for Speed for some great storytelling is going to be suckered into some nonsense, but yeah, very enjoyable, and I would strongly recommend Hot Pursuit for $3.99. It's just a great deal, so definitely check that out. Next up, we have Doom 2016, 75% off for $4.99. I mean, Doom 2016 is just an awesome, fast-paced, over-the-top first-person shooter. Like, anybody can really get into Doom. I really do believe that. I mean, maybe don't get your, like, kid that's just getting into gaming into Doom. Maybe that's not the right play. But as far as just regular gamers go, Doom is an awesome, over-the-top FPS experience. It's visceral, it's gory, and it's just absolute chaos. I did prefer Doom Eternal over Doom 2016, but Doom 2016 was awesome, and I wasn't a big Doom guy growing up. Like, I really didn't play the earlier games that much. but Doom 2016 really grabbed me, so check that out. It is available on PlayStation Plus Extra, so you can play it that way as well. Next up, we have Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is a game that you guys might know got done pretty dirty by EA, and it was kind of wild because Titanfall 2 was released right around the time as some major first-person shooters. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was just about to come out, and EA's own Battlefield 1. When you had Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare coming out at the same time, which game is going to get the short end of the stick? Oh, that's right, it was Titanfall 2, which is wild because one of those three games, or two of those three games, were EA-published titles in Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1. Why not separate them? Like, give Titanfall 2 a little bit more time. A spring 2017, I think this came out in 2016, so a spring 2017 release probably would have been a lot better, but, you know, these decisions aren't up to me. There's powers that be that make the release decisions, and I ain't one of them, but nonetheless, Titanfall 2 was an awesome game. Awesome combat mech FPS. This campaign was added, which Titanfall 1 didn't have, and the campaign turned out to be pretty damn good. This game has had a bit of a revitalization in the last couple of months or so, and yeah, you should check it out. Even from a campaign standpoint, I think it's quite good. So $3.99 for that is great. Next up, we have XCOM 2, 95% off for $2.99. Now, obviously, I usually recommend people to check out the XCOM 2 collection because that'll get you the bonus content. War of the Chosen is the big one, but if you want to check out the base game, $2.99 is a great price. I really enjoyed XCOM 2. I'm not super into tactics titles, but XCOM Enemy Unknown was a game that really clicked with me, and XCOM 2 also very much enjoyed that from Firaxis. This is a game that can get fairly challenging, and, you know, the PlayStation version of the title definitely had its performance issues. I mean, it had performance issues on PC as well when it initially came out, but if you're remotely into tactics titles, $2.99 for this is a great deal, so definitely check that out. I think that's quite good, but if you want to wait for the complete edition, that is a good idea, the collection, I should say, because War of the Chosen is a sizable extension to the game, and, you know, if you just buy the base game now, you're kind of out of luck. You're not going to be buying War of the Chosen standalone. You'll probably just buy the collection, so you know, keep that in mind. Next up, we have Saints Row 4 Re-Elected, 80% off for $3.99. Yeah, Saints Row as a franchise kind of gone to the wayside after Saints Row 2022 really left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. But Saints Row 3, Saints Row 4, these games are a ton of fun. Yeah, they're not games you take super seriously. You don't get into them for the narrative, or maybe some people do, but these games are just wacky, chaotic fun, and I think Saints Row 4 really exemplified that. And with Re-Elected, you got a ton of bonus content. It's a sizable experience, and what I say about Saints Row is, like, it's a game that if you've had a long day at work and you just get home and you're tired and you just want to have some fun and zone out, Saints Row is that kind of experience you go to. It's like games like this, games like Just Cause 3, I think are perfect for that, and for $3.99, it's a good game to have in your library. It is available on PlayStation Plus Extra. Next up, we have Deus Ex Mankind Divided, 85% off for $4.49. Man, I have a lot of thoughts about this game. I was immensely excited for it. Like, this was one of my most anticipated games of the PS4 generation, and that's because I was such a big fan of Deus Ex Human Revolution. Deus Ex Human Revolution is probably, honestly speaking, one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I love that game. Jensen as a main character, I think, is awesome in that game. From an aesthetic standpoint, I thought it was great. Mankind Divided did a lot of things right. I think the gameplay was an improvement upon Human Revolution. Unfortunately, the performance of this game left a lot to be desired, and narratively just very questionable and unsatisfying by the end. A new Deus Ex title seemingly is in development very, very early on. We probably won't get that until like 2047, so you know, it is what it is, but we can look forward to that at some point. But for now, if you haven't checked out Mankind Divided, for this price, sub $5, it's still very much worthwhile a playthrough. It's just, I had grandiose expectations for Mankind Divided, and unfortunately, from my standpoint, they weren't met. Is it a good game? Absolutely. And for this price, I would definitely say pick it up. Next up, we have Gris, $4.24. This is one of the more unique games that you're gonna come across, and you can say that it's more of an experience than a game, but it is an incredibly compelling experience, if you want to call it that. From a visual standpoint, it is absolutely stunning, and it really tackles some more mature thematics that, you know, it is a game that delves a little bit more on sorrow. So, you know, long day at work, Saints Row is the game you want to go to. Gris probably isn't that, but it's an engrossing experience. It's got an incredible presentation style, great soundtrack, and an incredibly immersive experience as well. For this price point, 424 is great, and I feel like this game does get a lot of love, but hey, it deserves more love, and yeah, for this price point, definitely a solid pickup. And lastly, we have Scott Pilgrim vs. the World Complete Edition. This is 67% off for $4.94. I'm not a big Scott Pilgrim guy, but this is a very, very enjoyable beat-em-up. Love the cartoony art style to it, and I mean, that's probably going to hit home with fans as well. The character designs, I think, is great, and it's just a fun beat-em-up title if you just want to go into. Again, no nonsense here as well, and a fun time. Available on PlayStation Plus Extra, but yeah, we're going to be mentioning more Plus Extra games with the price hikes and whatnot, so I know a lot of you guys are opting out of continuing your Extra subscription, so buying the games to own them is pretty good, and we know what happens on Extra. The games will eventually rotate out, but that's going to do it for me. Again, the Essential Pick Sale has got some tremendous deals. This is just 10 games under the price of $5. There's more deals under the price of $5, which I'm sure we're going to get to all of that at some point, but, you know, got a lot of stuff to do, so I hope you guys have been enjoying the coverage, and of course, if you don't pick up anything now, probably, I'm going to say 99% chance every single one of these deals are going to be available again by the end of the year if you don't pick them up on this sale. So that's just the reality of the situation. And when I say by the end of the year, literally by the end of the year, the next 2 months, because there's the holiday sale, there's the Thanksgiving sale, Black Friday sale, whatever they're going to call it. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities to pick up great stuff. But that'll do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store is currently running its excellent Essential Pick Sale, and we already did a video looking at deals under $10. We did a second video under $10. We did a video of deals under $5, and now we're back with another deals under $5 video. Yeah, this sale is running for quite a while, and they put a lot of stuff on sale, so quite a lot to cover, but let's get right into it, and let's start things off with Valkyria Chronicles Remastered, which is 75% off for $4.99. I initially played this game back in the fall of 2008 when it came out, and I remember loving it back then. Unfortunately, I also remember this game being a commercial disaster over here stateside, which is such a bummer. At least back then it was a bummer, because the game was so unique. It had this great art style, it had a really cool way of telling its story through this storybook, but unfortunately a lot of people didn't check it out. It was also a PlayStation 3 exclusive at a time when the PlayStation 3 just wasn't resonating a lot, you know, with it being more expensive than the 360, etc., but then it eventually got a second win on the PC, and we ultimately got Valkyria Chronicles Remastered, which was a re-release of the game on PS4, and at this point it seems like a lot more people checked out the game and did enjoy it. It still had that great art style, a solid cast of characters, a little bit corny with its storytelling at times, but I think the gameplay style is great. A little bit challenging as well. There's one mission that really almost pushed me off of the game, but I still ended up really enjoying it. Definitely play this one, and then check out Valkyria Chronicles 4 at some point as well. Unfortunately, Valkyria Chronicles 2 is a PSP only title, and Valkyria Chronicles 3 never even made it stateside, and that's a bummer because Valkyria Chronicles 3 is quite possibly the most compelling out of the 3 titles. But for now, play VC1, it's great. $4.99 is a great buy. Next up, we have Bastion, and I'll be giving mention to a lot of the Supergiant games. 80% off for $2.99. Man, Bastion was one of those games that I feel like showcased that downloadable games could be truly great in their own merit. Up until Bastion, maybe there were a couple of other games that showcased that, but I feel like Bastion did a really good job of changing the perception of how downloadable games could be in the Xbox Live Arcade days, and it turned out to be a great game, an awesome art style that is once again just aged gracefully, incredible narration. The gameplay I wouldn't say is blow away, but aesthetically, soundtrack wise, those elements are incredibly strong, and for $2.99, Bastion is an awesome pickup. I would strongly recommend it, and definitely give this one a look. Next up, another Supergiant Games title, Transistor, $3.99. This has more of a sci-fi aesthetic that I think works really well as well, has an interesting gameplay style, compelling story as well. I think this is a solid pickup as well. This was a PlayStation Plus title way back in the day. Like, we're going back into the vault mentioning it's a Plus title. I think it was back when it came out, like 2014. So, you know, some of you guys might have it in your library, but I doubt that's the case for all of you. $3.99 for that is quite good. And then Pyre is 75% off for $4.99. Now, this is generally what I feel to be the most under-the-radar Supergiant games. I mean, when you look at Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, all of these games kind of fall short of the notoriety that Hades got, but Pyre's a pretty cool party-based RPG as well. Once again, has a great art style, cool story as well. $5 I think here is a good pickup as well.
So I would recommend all 3 of the Supergiant Games title. I'm surprised that they don't have a Supergiant Games like Classics bundle and you get like all 3 games for, you know, like $10. It would literally be $1 savings, but I'm surprised they haven't done that. Get on that. I don't know if Supergiant's in charge of that or Sony, but definitely make that happen. Next up, we have Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet, 88% off for $4.79. Now, I certainly meme on Sword Art Online quite a bit. I think the anime is kind of terrible, but, you know, the first 3 episodes are great. After the first 3 episodes, it just falls off a damn cliff. Fatal Bullet, however, I thought was a pretty decent JRPG from a gameplay standpoint. It takes place in the Gun Gale Online universe, which I kind of dug with the different aspects from your regular SAO world. I thought it was okay. Was it $50 good? No, and for some unknown reason, I spent $50 on this game, but for $4.79, I think it's a decent pickup, and I would recommend it if you're a hardcore JRPG fan and you're trying to play everything. Next up, we have Strider, 80% off for $2.99. Much like Transistor back in 2014, this was a PlayStation Plus title as well, an essential title. Well, back then, that wasn't a thing, but Strider is a revamp of the classic Capcom franchise, obviously a little bit before my time as far as the originals go, but $2.99 for this, I think, is quite good. Solid action platformer, has a little bit of challenge, a little bit of rewarding gameplay. If you're into side-scrolling action titles, platforming as well, you're gonna enjoy Strider. You got a little bit of a throwback here, but also modernized for, you know, 2014, so still a little bit older. It is available on PlayStation Plus Premium, but, you know, to own the game for $3, I think that's a pretty damn good deal. Next up, we have Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions Evolved. This is 85% off for $2.24. When you're getting an over-the-top shoot 'em up like Geometry Wars for $2 and change, I think this is a pretty great deal. Super arcadey, over 100 total levels, great visual style, 15 3D grids, 6 unique companion drones, including attack, collect, ramp, snipe, defend, and the all-new sweep drone, a new hardcore mode as well, and you've got leaderboards for replayability. Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions Evolved, 85% off for $2 and change is a great pickup here. Next up, we have XCOM 2, 95% off for $2.99. Now, obviously, when it comes to XCOM 2, I do generally recommend you to get the XCOM 2 collection if you want all the content. You got War of the Chosen, which is the big piece of content that does extend the experience quite a bit. However, you know, the collection is usually what, $6.99, $7.99, $9.99. XCOM 2, the base game here for $2.99 is a really solid deal. Now, there are some technical limitations and some technical shortcomings when it comes to this game. Bear in mind that it was a PS4 it was originally a PS4 title, of course, and there's no PS5 upgrade or anything like that. But it's still a very rewarding tactics-based title, and as you guys might know, I'm not big on tactical titles, but XCOM Enemy Unknown really won me over, and XCOM 2 I thought was a great one as well. $2.99, an excellent pickup there. Next up, we have Unravel, 75% off for $4.99. Now, this game is certainly rough around the edges, and it has some gameplay shortcomings and some nuances that are just not really my cup of tea. However, the emotion and I feel like the soul of this game really comes through. I still go back to the E3 showcase for this game where it was a pretty emotional moment, like all things considered, at that EA conference, which is a total disconnect from what you see at EA typically, especially at those events where it just really feels like a lot of it, and I get why it is. It's like PR spin, and, you know, they're trying to market to the masses. When they showcased Unravel, it was like a really different kind of vibe. You know, it's not a perfect game, but for $4.99, I think it's quite good. So check it out. I think if this was $2.99, I would definitely say, hey, slam dunk pickup. $5 pushes me away a little bit, but still, I would say check it out. Next up, we have Psychonauts, 75% off for $2.49. This is a cult classic to so many people, and for good reason. And to give you guys an idea of how much of a cult classic it is, I mean, it spawned a sequel. It eventually got a sequel that was helped funded via crowdfunding, and Psychonauts is still a worthwhile game to go through. It's got its comedy, it's absolutely got a level of charm that you don't see out of a lot of other games. Decent story as well. For $2.49, I think it's great. Just bear in mind, it's a mid-2000s game. It's gonna show its age. It's not gonna be something that is gonna rank up there with the best games today, especially from a visual standpoint, but hey, and for some people, it is gonna rank up with the best games today, but for $2.49, this is a great pickup. Next up, we have The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, 80% off for $3.99. I feel like I always always talk this game up. I played this when it initially came out, and I thought it was an incredibly compelling experience. Obviously, it's very much light on the gameplay in terms of action or anything like that. This is a navigation-based game, exploration-based game, story-driven title, but it's incredible in terms of an atmosphere and the engrossing elements to it, and sound design is really, really well done. For $3.99, it's a great deal. I could understand full price, you know, 20 bucks or whatever, a little bit too much, but at this price point, definitely worth a buy. And lastly, another atmospheric, you know, exploration adventure-driven game, What Remains of Edith Finch, a collection of strange tales about a family in Washington State, very much driven via its mystery to create a hooking experience, storytelling focus, again, light on your heavy action gameplay or anything like that, and for a full $20, it might be a little bit pricey, but for $4.99, if you're into story-based games, a good one to check out. It is available on PlayStation Plus Extra if you do want to play it that way, but that is going to do it for me. Again, this PlayStation Store sale is stacked top to bottom with a lot of great deals, and we've been trying to keep this focused on the budget titles, you know, under $5. I think I've pretty much exhausted everything that I can cover under $5. There's certainly a lot more under 10, so we might do that, but maybe after this we'll look at the more expensive titles that you guys should check out. But that'll do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store has kicked off a massive Essential Pick sale. A lot of great deals across the board as a part of these sales, and I want to highlight some deals under the price of $10 in this video. There's Essential Picks, there's games under 20. You guys know how this game works. Let's get right into it. Got about 10 games to go over. First of all, let's start off with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is 70% off for $8.99. It is available on PlayStation Plus Extra as well, so you can play it that way if you still are rocking with the extra subscription. But Assassin's Creed Syndicate is a really solid game. It was actually broken on PlayStation 5 for quite a while, but thankfully it has been fixed. I think it was fixed late last year, so Syndicate is now fully playable on PS5. It's not upgraded on PS5, it's still 30 frames per second. It's just it had a visual bug that was game-breaking on PlayStation 5 while trying to play Syndicate. Syndicate itself is a really solid game. I feel like this game's undoing was the fact that it released a year after Assassin's Creed Unity. Assassin's Creed Unity was kind of universally, I don't want to say universally hated upon, because actually at this point, like, I feel like people retrospectively look back at that game kind of fondly. It was just so buggy, glitchy, and kind of a mess. Syndicate, I thought the main characters were likable. I thought the open world was really fun to explore, and overall it's that classic Assassin's Creed gameplay that you guys know that I love. Personally, these games are right up my alley. They've got a bunch of other AC titles on sale right now, so you know, you can pick up a wide variety of stuff, but Syndicate's the one that I wanted to point out because this is the game that kind of faltered commercially and what pivoted Ubisoft into going the Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla route of their Assassin's Creed titles. Moving on from that, we have Borderlands The Handsome Collection, 75% off for $9.99. I love me some classic Borderlands. Borderlands 2, in my opinion, is the best game in the entire franchise. I just think it's a really well-made game. I think the comedy clicks in this game, which I feel like with Borderlands 3 and with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands especially, they really fell off in that regard, but Borderlands 2, I think, is really well done from a dialogue writing standpoint. Gameplay is great, a lot of replayability with the various characters. You get the DLC content as well, the majority of it with Borderlands 2. You also got Borderlands the pre-sequel, which is a lot more of the same, but it works. So, the pre-sequel is a decent game on top of that, and don't worry about playing the game solo. Like, I think Borderlands is fine solo. I completed the game cooperatively, I completed the game solo, and yeah, sure, it's fun with friends, and if you have a couple buddies that are gonna pick it up, go for it. Play the game co-op, but if you want to play it solo, that is an option as well, so definitely give that a recommendation at $9.99. Next up, we have Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown, 84% off for $9.59. A very underrated franchise. The case with Ace Combat 7 is it kind of had a very unfortunate release timing. It came out back in January 2019, and I want to say it was like right before or right after both Kingdom Hearts 3 and the Resident Evil 2 remake came out. Yeah, why late Januaries are always stacked? Don't ask me, because it's stacked next year too. But Ace Combat 7, I mean, it turned out to do pretty well even with that competition, and the game itself is great. Awesome action flight gameplay, and I feel like,
you know, we talk about great soundtracks on this channel and great soundtracks in general. Ace Combat does not get the love it deserves for having fantastic soundtracks. Like, the soundtrack in Ace Combat, I feel like is a banger, and if you're into action flight titles, you're gonna enjoy this. I guess action flight really isn't a genre, but if you like action games that are over the top, Ace Combat's gonna be right up your alley. Narratively, Ace Combat doesn't click with me, but, you know, I'm in this for the gameplay and the great music, and Ace Combat 7 hits home with me in that regard. Next up, we have Prototype 2, 85% off for $5.99. Now, my fondest memory of Prototype was leading into June of 2009 and the summer of 2009 in general, where there was like a legit flame war between Prototype 1 and Infamous 1 on which was going to be the better superhero open world game. I think part of that was because like the fanboy wars were at a pinnacle at that point, and Prototype was a multi-platform game and Infamous was an exclusive. Yes, quite a time machine there. Prototype ended up being pretty good, but Infamous was the better game. Prototype 2 I thought was really solid. You have a different main character, and what I think Prototype does really well is really does a good job of making you feel like an overpowered superhero with a bunch of abilities. Like, Prototype is absolutely chaotic and an absolute joy to play from a gameplay standpoint. Does it have its shortcomings? Sure. The visuals are not anything to write home about, to be perfectly honest. I remember when Prototype 1 and 2 came out, I was like, man, this looks like a pretty good-looking PS2 game. Like, that's what I thought personally. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but you know, it is what it is. For $6, Prototype 2 is a good buy. If you want an over-the-top action superhero title, like, you're gonna find it here. And I think when it comes to, you know, superhero games, if you want to call this a superhero game, that's kind of what you want. You want to feel like an overpowered superhero, and Prototype 2 does a pretty good job of making you feel that way. Next up, we have Risk of Rain 2, 75% off for $6.24. Now, this is a game that has an awesome art style and a great gameplay loop, but albeit, the gameplay loop for me got pretty frustrating. Like, I remember downloading this game when it got into early access on Steam and PC, and downloading the game, playing it for a little bit, and then just uninstalling the game because I got so frustrated. But at the same time, that uninstallation lasted for like 30 minutes because I was like, all right, I'm ready to get back in. The game is incredibly addicting, and it's incredibly rewarding to play through with the various abilities you can utilize. The gameplay loop is just very enjoyable to go through, and if you do have friends to play with, it does have online co-op play, so that is an option you can take part in, and the co-op is great, so if you do want to play that way, that is an option. But you can play it solo as well and have a good time that way. $6.24 is a great buy. Get some friends to pick it up, and you'll have an awesome time with that. Next up, Metro Exodus Gold Edition, 80% off for $7.99. I liked Metro Exodus. Did I like it as much as Metro 2033 and Last Light? Personally, no, and I don't know if that's a bit of a hot take. From a technical standpoint, obviously, Exodus is a remarkable game, and the PlayStation 5 upgrade really showcases that once again. It is a atmospheric first-person shooter that is very narrative-heavy. I would recommend you to play 2033 and Last Light. Some of the gameplay aspects and design choices didn't hit home with me, but overall, it's still a solid game, and the fact is, you're paying $7.99 for this game. Like, that's a disgustingly good deal, given that you get the base game, you get the DLC. That is a great pickup, especially if you're playing it on PlayStation 5. You guys are gonna have a great time with that. Next up, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. Another game with a great art style. This came out back in 2010 on PlayStation 3, done by Level 5, who are pretty quiet these days as far as game releases here stateside especially, but they did a great job with Ni no Kuni as a JRPG, a very accessible JRPG, and I think one that's actually fairly good if you're looking to get into the genre. Very much has that Studio Ghibli aesthetic that I think a lot of people are really gonna dig. For $9.99, this is a great JRPG with some charming characters, likable characters as well, and definitely a solid pickup if you're looking to get into the genre or just expand your JRPG repertoire. Next up, Catherine Full Body Edition, 80% off for $7.99. I believe this is by far the cheapest this game has been. My real issue with Catherine Full Body Edition was initially the price point, $50. And I had an issue with Catherine's price point back when it came out, I think in 2012. It is a game that is replayable with different decisions to be made, and you do have a new route that's added with the Full Body Edition, with the addition of another character. Catherine's a really quirky puzzle game that is incredibly wacky and zany at times. The puzzle gameplay I wasn't in love with. I thought it was fine, but the storytelling, the characters, that's the aspect you're getting into the game for. I also think if this is a game that you play in front of like your significant other or something like that, they'll get into the game even if they're not into gaming. Like, you get into this game for the storytelling, and it's something that I feel like the wackiness can really bring people into it. That's just my 2 cents. A bunch of different endings and things like that, so there is definitely replayability. It's not gonna be for everyone. I think the wackiness is gonna be like a little bit off-putting for some people, but overall I thought the game was really enjoyable. Art style's great, soundtrack's pretty good as well, and one of the more quirky games that you're gonna find. $8 for full body edition, I think, is a really good pickup. So check that out. Next up, we have Yakuza 0, 70% off for $5.99. I mean, it's Yakuza 0. At this point, I've talked about this game ad nauseum. Anybody that's a fan of RGG games has talked about this game ad nauseum. It's a fantastic action beat-em-up title. However you want to describe the RGG games, they're great. In my opinion, Judgment is the best game they've put out, and I do like the fact that Judgment has English voice acting, even though some of you guys are gonna be like, blasphemy, playing an RGG game with English voice acting. Look, some people just don't want to read subtitles, and I can definitely understand that, but Yakuza 0's voice acting is great. It's just like, you know, it's subtitled. It is what it is. Soundtrack is awesome. Characters are great. Kiryu, of course, making a comeback in Infinite Wealth, so might be a good idea to get familiar with this story. But if you're excited for Infinite Wealth, let's be real, you've probably played Yakuza 0, so you don't even have to think about it from that regard. Yes, Yakuza as a franchise is pretty daunting to get into with all the games that are available from 0, Kiwami 1, Kiwami 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Like a Dragon Ishin, you've got The Man Who Erased His Name coming out, you have Like a Dragon, you have Infinite Wealth coming out. Like, there's so many games, and people want to play Judgment and Lost Judgment as well. If you want to get into RGG games, they're a heavy undertaking, especially if you want to do everything. Look, if you rush through the main stories of the games, you can beat them somewhat quickly, but if you're trying to do all the content, you're trying to take your time with it, they are vast experiences. And what I highly recommend you not to do is not play the Yakuza games back to back. Like, playing them sequentially right away. What I'm saying is play 0, maybe play Kiwami, take a break for a while, because you're gonna burn yourself out trying to go through the entire Yakuza franchise back to back. That's just my opinion. If you disagree, more power to you. If you can manage to pull that off, I'm envious of you. These games are great, but you can get burned out from them just because of the expansive nature of them and how many games there are out there. It's almost like, you know, could you imagine playing the Legend of Heroes games back to back? Like, that would be a wild undertaking. So play 0, take it for what it is. You're gonna get a great experience out of it, and play Kiwami as well. Those are the two titles. If you want to get into Yakuza, I would recommend to play the first and focus on those. Don't worry about the other games right now. Lastly, I do want to note Tales of Berseria, 50% off for $9.99. Great deal for Tales of Berseria, an awesome Tales of Game of franchise that I talk about ad nauseum as well. You know, the franchise is just super consistent, and Berseria has one of the more compelling main characters out of any JRPG in Velvet. She's got a dark backstory, and characters are pretty good, but Velvet's really the star of the show as far as the character roster goes, and overall the story's pretty good. Lengthier game, but not crazy lengthy in the standards of JRPGs that you see regularly. Very good game, $9.99, definitely a great buy. Great soundtrack on this one as well. But that'll do it for me. Again, a lot of great PlayStation game deals under the price of $10 as a part of all the sales running right now. As always, there's going to be more sales coming, so don't fret if you don't pick anything up. But that'll do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store continues to run its Essential Pick sale. The Halloween sale is still going on, and there's a Games Under $20 sale. I'm back at it to bring you guys deals under $10. We already did one of these videos. Go check that out if you're interested, but there's so many deals available. We could do another under $10 video. I don't know if we're gonna do another one, but we'll see. A lot of good stuff, so let's get right into it, and let's start things off with a couple of Assassin's Creed games. Want to give a shout to Assassin's Creed Rogue Remastered, which is 70% off for $8.99. I really liked Assassin's Creed Rogue. This game had the unfortunate fate of being released in the fall of 2014. Assassin's Creed at that point was kind of starting to lose a little bit of its hype. I just think the yearly releases were getting a little bit to be a bit much, and the issue with Rogue was it was coming out in fall of 2014, and it was the last generation game. So that year they decided to release AC Rogue on 360 and PS3, and then they decided to do AC Unity on PS4 and Xbox One. Well, AC Unity got the bulk of the attention, and AC Unity, while that game when it came out was a bug-ridden mess, nowadays, you know, people look back at that game as a really solid Assassin's Creed game. Alternatively, Assassin's Creed Rogue also, now people look back at it as a solid Assassin's Creed game, but even in the fall of 2014, it didn't get a lot of attention because the PS4 and X1 didn't have backwards compatibility. A lot of people weren't trying to dig up their own old consoles. You guys get the idea. Assassin's Creed Rogue took a lot of what worked in Assassin's Creed 4, the naval combat, worked really well in Assassin's Creed Rogue. It's not a super lengthy game, but has one of the more compelling main characters. The story's really solid, and it's that typical Assassin's Creed fare that I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really well done game. $9 for that is pretty good. And then for those of you that do want to get into the newer style of Assassin's Creed games, AC Origins is down to $9 as well. Is upgraded on PlayStation 5 from a frame rate standpoint, so you can play it on there and have a better experience. You guys already know my opinions on Assassin's Creed these days. I'm not crazy about them, but yeah, I understand a lot of you guys are into it, so I thought I'd give it a mention. The Gold Edition is down to $19.99, so you'll get a bunch of bonus content with that if you do decide to drop the 20 bucks. Next up, Catherine Full Body is 80% off for $7.99. This is a fantastic deal for an incredibly quirky puzzle game with a really good story. Now, with the Full Body Edition, you get another route to go through with another character being introduced, so it does add a layer of replayability. Even with that, I thought the initial $50 price tag was a little bit high, and I remember saying that when it was coming out, but down to $8. I mean, come on, this is a great price. And I've always said with Catherine, it's a great game that if you want to have, you know, somebody watch you play, ideally a significant other. Like, I don't think people gather around with the boys to, like, go through Catherine together. But I don't know, yo. You guys do whatever the hell you want to do. But Catherine Full Body Edition is a great game. $8. Puzzle gameplay isn't for everybody, but you can also set it to the easiest difficulty, and it'll be a breeze to go through. And the art style is really solid, but yeah, $8 for that, really good deal there. Next up, we have Dragon Age Inquisition Game of the Year Edition, 75% off for $9.99. So this is the third Dragon Age title, includes a bunch of DLC content as well, and for a lot of people, and I would agree with this rhetoric, this is the last great game that BioWare put out, because after this, it was Mass Effect Andromeda. After that, it was Anthem, and now Dragon Age Dreadwolf is just in dev hell. So, like, yo, BioWare is another one of those studios, like a Rocksteady, that I feel like, oh my goodness, their trajectory over the last 8 years or so has just been very depressing to see, but let's go back to Inquisition. Really solid game from a gameplay standpoint. Visually, I think it still looks great, and it was one of the first next-gen games that was a really solid showcase of what the generation was going to be. It was a cross-gen game, but, like, even still, I thought it was a good showcase of what the PS4 could do. And yeah, just solid RPG all around. It is a sizable undertaking, so keep that in mind. $9.99, pretty good price there. Next up, we have City Skylines Remastered, 75% off for $9.99. Now, I really want to give this a mention just because City Skylines 2 has been kind of a train wreck. That's kind of the deal with a lot of those games. Now, City Skylines 2 was supposed to drop on PlayStation 5 just a few days ago, but apparently the game has really bad performance issues on consoles, and it has really bad performance issues on PC as well, which it came out, but I guess the console version just must have been a complete train wreck where they didn't even want to release it. City Skylines 1 does exist, and it's a pretty compelling city builder experience. Now, just the thing with this game is that there is a ton of DLC and additional content that if you want the complete experience, yeah, you gotta sell an arm and a leg to get all that content. But you know, with the PS5 edition, it does include a bunch of upgrades, map editor, new environmental controls, UI improvements, quick selection tools, and so on and so forth. So if you want a city builder, $9.99 for this is good. City Skylines 2 should be out sometime, probably in early 24 on PlayStation 5. Next up, we have Far Cry 3 Classic Edition, 75% off for $7.49. Now, emphasis on the Classic Edition nomenclature because, yeah, Far Cry 3 doesn't see a lot of upgrades on PS4 with this release. But why do I recommend it? Because Far Cry 3 is a freaking awesome game. Really took Far Cry as an IP to the next level, and now, you know, Ubisoft is all in, and I think some of the recent Far Cry games, I was like, alright, yo, we're pushing back a little bit on that, but Far Cry 3 is great. Kinda the ending portion of the game didn't really click with me, but I think that could be said for a lot of people. $7.49, however, for Far Cry 3, I think is a great deal, and I would strongly recommend it. You know, it is a 2012 title, so keep that in mind, but this game, from a visual standpoint back then, looked fantastic. It was one of those games that pushed visual fidelity in 2012, so $7.50 for that. Kind of pricey. Like, I would like to see a $3.74 price tag, but, you know, that might just be me being cheap. Next up, Dreams, 60% off for $7.99. A game that I think Sony could have done much more with, especially from a marketing standpoint. There are so many things you could have done with Dreams to make this game easier to access for consumers, and I think that would have just elevated the game to a different level. Sure, you can be selling copies for $8, but ultimately the game is now shut down. From a update standpoint, you can still go in and enjoy the Dreams universe. If you don't know, this is a game done by Media Molecule, who very much focus on their creation suite. So they did Little Big Planet, Mod Nation Racers, and Dreams honestly could be seen as their magnum opus, at least from a
idea standpoint, the idea of having a game where you create other games and experience other creations from other people, it sounded like an incredibly compelling experience, and it is incredibly compelling. It just didn't click at a higher level, and I think Sony would have done a lot of good if they, you know, offered this as a PlayStation Plus incentive, maybe right out the gate. Maybe somehow this should have been a free-to-play game. I don't know. There were a lot of things Sony could have done with this game to make it a more compelling experience and just make it more accessible. Like, why did it take all these years for it to be a PlayStation Plus title, and it became a Plus title right before it was gonna be, you know, the updates were ceasing? Like, yeah, yo, I don't understand that, but Dreams, I still think is an incredibly compelling experience to go into, and you don't have to worry about you being uncreative or not wanting to mess around with the creation suite. You can go in for what Dreams already has and experience the creations of people that are far more talented than you or I. So, yeah, $8 for that is pretty good. Journey, 50% off for $7.49. That game company title, man, I remember when Journey was coming out on the PlayStation 3, and I thought there was a little bit of hyperbole attached to Journey. Like, you're getting 10 out of 10s across the board. I thought was a little bit of a stretch. Is it a incredibly engrossing game? Sure, I agree with you on that. And then people talking about, yo, the game made them cry at the end, and I was like, okay, I didn't feel that way about Journey, but if it made you cry, bro, Walking Dead Season 1 made me cry. So, like, yo, I ain't hating on that. It's just I didn't have that level of emotional pull from Journey, but I still thought it was a really, really well-made game in terms of an experience, and that's what that game company offers. They also did Flower. Yeah, $7.49 is not a bad price. Again, this is one of those games I'd like to see at $3.74. Paying over $5 on Journey just doesn't sit completely right with me, but you know what? That's just me being cheap as hell again. Next up, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, 80% off for $9.99. Tales of Vesperia is a great game that does show its age a little bit. It came out all the way back in August of 2008, so, you know, we're 15 years removed from the original release of this game. I think the cast in this game is incredibly strong. Yuri is one of the best main characters in a video game ever. Not just in a JRPG, not just in a Tales of game, no, in a video game ever. Yuri is one of the best characters that you're going to come across. The rest of the cast is pretty solid. The story's fairly good, and the gameplay, yeah, the gameplay shows its age in terms of it's a 15-year-old Tales of game. Like, it is what it is, but $9.99 for this I think is pretty good, and it's a lengthy game with a lot of additional content, post-game content, everything like that. Next up, Star Ocean First Departure R, 70% off for $6.29. We're coming up on the second story R. Thought I would give a recommendation to First Departure R. This is a remaster and upgraded release of Star Ocean 1, so if you want to check that out, also had a release on PSP. Same whole spiel that they're doing with Second Story R. But yeah, $6.29 for that is pretty good. It's on Plus Premium. But yeah, check that out if you're into JRPGs. Next up, Okami HD, 50% off for $9.99. I mean, I've been plugging Okami HD and Okami in general for years and years at this point. At some point, I've promoted it enough and Okami 2 will be announced and my work here will be done. But yeah, seriously, I've been waiting on this game to get another entry, and Okami's just a tremendous game. If you look up a list of the top 20, 50, 100 PS2 games of all time, Okami usually ranks among the top 3 to 5, at the very least the top 10. It's just a remarkably well done game. The sound design, the presentation, the visual style, aesthetically, the game looks great. Always see a lot of comparisons towards The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. It is just such a well-made game. Deserves a lot more love. Yes, I know Okami Den exists on the Nintendo DS. It seems like every time I talk about wanting an Okami 2, people are like, oh, dude, you gotta play Okami Den. Trust me, I have, but, a full-fledged console sequel is what I'm talking about, but Okami HD for $9.99, quite good. Next up, Gravity Rush 2. This is 50% off for $9.99. Man, another IP that Sony just isn't doing much with. Gravity Rush is so awesome, and from an art style standpoint, gameplay is so compelling. The main character's great. Just a lot of love and care was put into the design of this game. The character designs are great. 50% off for $9.99 is an awesome deal. Yes, you should play Gravity Rush 1 as well, and it's unfortunate we'll probably never get a Gravity Rush 3, and like, a real sobering thought in the state of the industry of what Sony is doing is, think about all the money that they put towards Last of Us Factions, which ultimately probably will never come out, and all of this money that they put towards games as a service, your Concords and your Fair games. No slight on Concord or Fair Game, it's just like, yo, I don't know if those games are gonna click, but, you know,
thinking about all the money they put towards games as a service, Gravity Rush 3 could have been made 10 times over, 100 times over. Like, this game didn't have, like, a crazy budget, and it's just like, man, I think if Gravity Rush 3 came out in 2023 or 2024, whatever, I think the audience would have been more receptive towards it. I do feel the gaming landscape has changed a little bit, where a game like Gravity Rush should get a lot more attention. It's not like a game like this would have the biggest you know, budget in the world. Just at least port these games to PC so they can have a second wind on there. More people deserve to play Gravity Rush because it's so underrated, and yes, I know, me hating on games as a service is never gonna accomplish Gravity Rush 3 becoming a reality, but you know, it is a sobering thought, but I guess that's just not what brings in the money these days. And I can understand, yeah, if Fair Game pops off, if it's one of the biggest live service games that is available in the market, it's gonna make a lot more money than a potential Gravity Rush 3 could make. I understand that. It just sucks that that is the reality of the situation. But yeah, diatribe over, go check out Gravity Rush 2. And that is gonna do it for me. What a way to end this video. But yeah, a lot of great stuff under the price of $10. Links to everything, as always, in the description box down below. That's gonna do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store is running its excellent Essential Pick sale, and we've done a lot of videos looking at games under 10, under 5, but now we're going to be looking at deals under 20, so that gives us a little bit more headroom in terms of what games I can recommend in this video. Let's get right into it, and let's start things off with Resident Evil Village, 60% off for $15.99. Nice to see this game get cheaper and cheaper. RE Village is fantastic. It's a really, really well done survival horror game, and built upon Resident Evil Biohazard quite well. You know, with Resident Evil titles, they're not super lengthy, but Village is one that, when it came out, like, I really enjoyed this game, and I completed it multiple times right off the bat. I kind of usually do that with Resident Evil games. Like, I feel like Resident Evil is one franchise that warrants multiple playthroughs right away, but the game is great. Strongly recommended, and it'll be very interesting to see where Capcom goes with Resident Evil from here. If you do have PSVR 2, obviously you should play this with VR 2. At least try it out with that. And there is a gold edition available. Unfortunately, that is not on sale right now. That does include some DLC and some other bonuses, but yeah, $15.99 for the base game is great. Next up, we have Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel, and we'll give a shout to Cold Steel 2. Look, obviously, you want to play these games sequentially, and even beyond that, I often talk about how a lot of people recommend you to play Legend of Heroes Trails from the Sky trilogy, and then work your way into the Crossbell arc, and then get to Trails of Cold Steel. I personally think it's fine to play Cold Steel without playing the other arcs. Is it beneficial to play the other arcs? Absolutely, but the thing is, those games were all designed for the PSP, so they are very dated in terms of presentation, and the Sky Trilogy isn't even available on PlayStation platforms, so really, your options are fairly limited. Now, if you have a PC, if you have, like, a Vita or something, like, yo, you can get the Sky Trilogy on there, but yeah, there's a lot of opinions. I think if you play with Cold Steel, I'm not gonna hold it against you, but some hardcore Legend of Heroes fans will hold me at gunpoint for that opinion. But nonetheless, $19.99 is great. It should be known that Cold Steel 1 is kind of a set-the-table kind of game for the entirety of the Cold Steel arc, but it's still very, very good in the second half of this game, and the ending is so crazy. It's just really, really well done, and Cold Steel 2, like, right off the rip is a banger from start to finish, so I would recommend both games, but don't play Cold Steel 2 without playing Cold Steel 1, obviously. Next up, we have Sifu, the Premium Edition. It is 60% off for $19.99. Solid deal on Sifu. The Premium Edition isn't anything to write home about. You get the digital original soundtrack, the official digital art book, the photo mode cinematic pack, and the deluxe exclusive outfits. You know, nothing that consequential, but the regular edition is not on sale. Sifu's a really solid game by Slowclap, the same studio that brought Absolver, and Absolver was an okay game, but Sifu really took the martial arts combat style and made it a high-quality game. Yes, is it very challenging? You're damn right it is. This is a game that damn near made me break my controller at times. It's like this and Ghost Runner that I'll go back to. There's a lot of games that made me almost break my controller. Super Meat Boy is another one of them, but nonetheless, Sifu, $19.99. If you want a challenging experience, is a pretty good one, and I think at this price point, it's well worth it. Next up, we have the Assassin's Creed Ezio Collection. I mean, I think everybody's played the Ezio trilogy at this point. AC2, Brotherhood, Revelations, but maybe you played it on the PlayStation 3, and you don't don't have the Ezio collection, this is a great way to revisit the games, given that we don't have backwards compatibility on PlayStation. The Ezio collection is a solid shout. Like, AC2 is still a phenomenal game. Brotherhood's really good, albeit really easy. Like, Revelations I'm not as crazy about, but it's still a fairly decent game. You know, having Altair in there also added another layer to it. But yeah, 2 and Brotherhood are classics in my opinion, and Revelations is still pretty damn good. Next up, we have Assassin's Creed Origins Gold Edition. I primarily recommend these games, like, not because of my own love for these titles, but I know that, my opinion aside, a lot of people are going to find a lot of value out of the newer style Assassin's Creed games, and it's not like I hated Origins as a game. I thought it was fairly decent. You know, still had that grindy gameplay aspect, and the Deluxe Pass, the Gold Edition will give you the Deluxe Pass and the Season Pass. The Deluxe Pack has a mission and the Desert Cobra Pack, and then the Season Pass includes a bunch of DLC content, the Hidden Ones DLC, the Curse of the Pharaoh DLCs, the Roman Pack, the Horus Pack, and free Helix Credit Pack as well. And it runs fairly well on the PS5 now, so definitely for $19.99, solid shout there. Next up, we have Persona 4 Golden, 35% off for $12.99. P3P Persona 3 Portable is also on sale, but let's be real, most of you guys are going to play Persona 3 via Persona 3 Reload. Persona 4 Golden, on the other hand, is the premier Persona 4 version. This was originally released on the PS Vita, and legit, for a lot of people, this was the system seller for the PS Vita. I know that this is a game that everybody loved, and some people will go as far as to say that Persona 4 is better than Persona 5. I don't know if I agree with that, but Persona 4 is a damn good game. Great story, great cast of characters. The soundtrack is awesome. I'll Face Myself is like one of the best songs of all time. But yeah, and Heartbreak. I know I'm kind of basic with my Persona 4 soundtrack preferences, but $13 for P4G. Excellent deal, strong recommendation, definitely. Like, this is like a bargain for the amount of content that you get. Next up, we have Crysis 2 Remastered, 60% off for $11.99. I loved Crysis 2. Like, I thought this was the best game in the Crysis franchise, which I know a lot of people are partial towards the original, but Crysis 2's more linear focus, I think, helped the game, and I still thought it was a fantastic game, and visually, it still holds up to this day, man. Would be nice if it got, like, an even bigger upgrade or something like that. I know that a Crysis 4 is in development. Hopefully, that comes out before 2030, but nevertheless, Crysis 2 Remastered for $11.99, great deal there. Next up, we have Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series, $14.79 on this, 63% off. These are great platformers that, unfortunately, Klonoa as a franchise really doesn't get a lot of love, given the fact that for whatever reason, like, commercially, these games just haven't clicked, and Fantasy Reverie Series didn't seem to click commercially either, although, like, the actual collection is great. Getting Klonoa 1 and 2, definitely a solid pickup, especially at sub 15 bucks. Games aren't super challenging or anything like that, but they're worthwhile playthroughs, and definitely give them a look if you're looking for some quality platformers. Next up, we have Odin Sphere Left Tracer, 75% off for $14.99. Vanillaware is a studio that I constantly go to bat for, constantly talk up all their games, and Odin Sphere was really their breakout project. It's a great action RPG, this 2D style to it, and they're the first of their kind that really put Vanillaware on the map. The art style is obviously tremendous. Aesthetically, the game's great. Soundtrack is solid. $15 for the game is great. Is available on Plus Extra, but definitely worthwhile. And this is a game I feel like most of you would want to have in your library. Also on PlayStation Plus Extra, Judgment, 65% off for $14. Judgment is a phenomenal game, and honestly, I don't think it's crazy if you think that Judgment is RGG's best outing. This game is so good from a storytelling standpoint. The main character is great. A lot of twists and turns, soundtrack is solid, and that gameplay, the beat-em-up action gameplay, works really well. And the main theme song is great as well. I mean, who can go wrong with that? Judgment also available on Plus Extra, but for 14 bucks, man. That is damn near highway robbery for that price. Next up, couple of Ys titles. Let's go with Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, 55% off for 18 bucks. That is the Ys game that released on PS4 and PS Vita. This is the Ys game that released on PS4 and PS Vita. Pretty damn good game. I mean, it's Ys true, a good mystery storyline in there as well. Action gameplay is really good. Soundtrack is solid. I wish that the only thing that Ys is missing, I think some quality of life improvements from a design standpoint would help, but you know, overall, Ys 8 is great and really a good way to get into the game. And then there's also Memories of Celceta, 50% off for $14.99. This one was released only on Vita and then later ported to the PS4. So obviously, technically, I mean, Ys is never gonna blow you away from a technical standpoint, but this is definitely a Vita game. Memories of Celceta is quite a good one, and Memories of Celceta is actually a remake, I believe, of an older Ys title as well. But nevertheless, a quality Ys game, solid action gameplay. Once again, all of the makings of a quality Ys title. Like, Ys, much like Tales, is a super consistent franchise, and Memories of Celceta is really no different. Next up, Scarlet Nexus, 80% off for $11.99. I feel like I beat the drum of Scarlet Nexus and its quality level quite a lot, just because I really enjoyed this game. I thought the action combat system was great. I thought the characters had, a decent bit of depth to it. I get it that the storytelling, from the standpoint of it plays out a lot like a visual novel in terms of the presentation. Yeah, that might be a turnoff to some people, but overall, the strengths of this game, I think, are really strong. Worthwhile to go through the game twice, especially with the two playable main characters, Yuito and Kasane. Really hope that this game gets, like, a sequel or another entry, some sort. I think this is something that can turn into a really high-quality JRPG franchise for Bandai Namco, and I don't think it's a stretch in saying that. The thing is, as far as Bandai Namco JRPGs go, like, Scarlet Nexus was released in June of 21, and then Tales of Arise came out in September of 21, and obviously Tales of Arise, like, really took a lot of the attention, but there's been talk and rumblings about a potential Scarlet Nexus, like, follow-up, or, this turning into a franchise, and I believe the director of the game talked about something of making the next game even darker, and that would be really cool to see. I don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition. Hopefully it does, because I quite enjoyed Scarlet Nexus. And lastly, Borderlands Legendary Collection, 60% off for $19.99. I mean, Borderlands is one of those franchises that, again, I always go to bat for. Outside of Borderlands 3 and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, of course, it used to be a franchise that I really loved, but this collection encompasses the games that I did love. Borderlands 1 Remastered, Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel, the game's respective DLCs. What that means is you get an absurd amount of content for your dollar, and I've always also been of the mindset that Borderlands, yes, it's a great co-op experience, but you can also play the game solo, and they're a good time that way as well. $19.99 for all that content is a bargain, so certainly check that out. But that is going to do it for me. Again, a lot of great deals as a part of this Essential Pick sale. Check them out. Links in the description box below, but that'll do it for me. Leave all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.